3 days and counting into the hurricane season. I should say, as of day two, yesterday afternoon, courtesy of National Hurricane Center, we have our first area of interest, and it's much closer to home than where we were initially concentrating. Now, we have a large area of disorganized showers and storms brought on by a leftover frontal boundary. We'll talk about that in a second. As of right now, National Hurricane Center gives this a solid 10 for 10 shot, 10% chance it does anything over the next 2 days, and only a 10% shot it does anything over the next 7 days. Now, this definitely kind of came up last second. Models latched onto this feature as it started to fester over an open water, kind of like a scab you decided to pick at and not keep clean. It festered over those warm waters right off our coastline, and as a result, models are naturally thinking this could develop a little bit of a spin. Generally proven through observation, you need about 80-degree Fahrenheit temperatures at the ocean surface to develop these tropical features. It's called tropical genesis, the creation of a tropical feature. And you can see where our area of interest is expected to start to show itself. We're going to be hugging the east coast of Florida, right up against where our warm continental shelf waters are, and the good old Gulf Stream current that runs south to north, right up along our coastline, as it not only moves away from Florida, but up into the mid-Atlantic region. So definitely has the ocean temperatures to rock and roll with. Let's look at the varying parameters we have at different levels of the atmosphere now. So here's the setup. We have that decaying front. That came through last weekend, and it's still been sitting there kind of hung up in the pattern, not really going anywhere. And I think part of that is due to that upper level low you see off our west coast. It's helping to bring down additional leftover jet stream energy highest up in the atmosphere. And it puts our little feature there, the yellow X off our east coast, in the favorable quadrant to receive a little upper level nudge, helping to induce even more lift to keep those thunderstorms firing, increase the chance we get lower pressure down at ground level at the surface, which will create that counterclockwise spin. So all in all, despite the dry air and the Saharan dust that will be sneaking into our area over the next couple of days, this is a fairly decent setup, fairly decent region for this thing to try to unveil itself, unpack it a little bit, and then try to consolidate at least into a marginal area of low pressure to throw some rip currents, some beach erosion, and some gusty winds to the immediate coastline over the next few days. Now, one thing I wanted to address today, though, if you rock with me, if you've stuck with me to this point, naturally, because of the time of year, this is what we consider the Super Bowl of the calendar year. If you weren't watching the weather up to this point, I always say you're probably watching it now for the hurricane season. So social media, YouTube, X, TikTok, everywhere you get your social media weather information from is ablaze. How rare or how weird, out of the ordinary is it for something to suddenly pop up right off the coastline? Well, the answer is actually pretty interesting here. If you take a look, I was even a little astounded by this, but this is Arthur. And what makes Arthur so special as an example today is if you look, we've had 3 recurring iterations of this feature. Tropical Storm Arthur in June 1996, and then again in July of 2002, and then one more time as a hurricane in July 2014. So why are we talking about Arthur? First of all, if you look at the timestamps there, this is around the same, on average, point of reference on time and on the calendar, if you will, where this thing decided to take shape, right off our east coast. The second iteration there, where you see forming on the 15th of July in 2022, that was through the exact same mechanisms as we have right now. Notice it's a fairly asymmetrical system. All the clouds and the rainfall associated with it are on its east side, likely thanks to the jet stream that we have currently in place, helping to provide a little bit of that vertical wind shear that these things don't like. And then sometimes, also, the metaphor I like to use, we can win the tropical lottery. And if you look at the far right, most recent iteration, we had a fully symmetrical warm core hurricane that went on to impact North Carolina. Definitely not thinking that's going to happen. In fact, I really don't know if this will even get a name, otherwise becoming more just a raggedy low pressure system that gives us a little bit of misery in terms of rainier days with all the graduations we have going on, the beginning of summer vacation. But I wanted to emphasize this is not as uncommon as maybe a few of you new to tropical tracking as would be expected. This is definitely not unusual, and I have a phenomenal article over on clickorlando.com as to what these homegrown systems are and why it is we typically see them start to flare up between the months of June, maybe the first week or two, give or take, of July, and then especially the very tail end of